Hi, this is Danny from Coffee, Tea, and PvP. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about how you and your friends can win at Walatiki Temple in Wildstar. This is Walatiki Temple. Just in case you're new here, we'll do a quick orientation and then we'll talk strategy. I'll talk to you today about what type of strategies you can be running with your 10-man Battleground groups that you're going to be running this place in for rated BGs, and we'll also talk strategy for much smaller groups, like the 5-man groups that you'll probably be running when you're leveling up and just doing casual PvP here. I'll also talk a little bit about what type of strategies you can use if you're queuing up solo. But first things first, Exile side, Dominion side. These are your mask rooms, so this is where you capture your masks, and this is the best place to defend your masks. Main entrances are here and here. There's also a sneaky way to get in through these caves here on the side of the map. It's less direct, but it opens up into the back of the mask room. We'll talk more about that later. Take a look at your respawn points. These are over here and here. These respawn points are where you start off the match, and it's also where you're going to respawn if you die. Now, the thing to remember is that since the time to kill in Wildstar is relatively high, and the respawn on this map can be relatively quick, it's really easy to get caught up in a quagmire of a big fight right here below the respawn points and just get splattered. I mean, if you get stuck here too long, it's a trap. Your team is going to get caught up there and it's going to get engaged for way too long while the other team is free to run around and have their way with the map. Same thing goes for fighting inside the mask room. You want to get in a quick engagement and get out of there. You don't want to stay there for too long, because otherwise what you're going to be doing is constantly fighting the respawn. Because there's so much enemy traffic right outside the main entrance to the mask rooms, the most common escape is through the caves. Carrying the masks slows you down, and taking the caves is the longest route, but you get the added benefit of being out of sight, which can buy you valuable time if you need your team to catch up to you. Of course, it can also give the enemy time to set up an ambush. If you have this support, right out the front is the fastest way to go, but use your judgment. I mean, if you see a horde of enemy players at the entrance, you don't want to be the guy running around in a thunderstorm while holding up a fork. So let's talk about Tiki masks. Tiki masks can spawn here in the center of the top paths, in the center of the pit below, or down on either side. There's also one mask in each team's base at the start of the match. If a mask is dropped, it'll respawn exactly 1 minute after it disappears to reset. Orientation aside, the most important thing you need to know about masks is that a stolen mask is worth twice as much as a picked up mask. This is because it hurts your enemy while helping you. The downside is that stealing a mask is usually harder than grabbing one out of the center, but that just makes taking it all the more fun. There's another benefit to stealing a mask, which is that even if you drop it, your enemy needs to defend it to keep you from picking it back up again until it resets. They can't pick it up to reset it themselves. Even better, it's often the other team's defenders who stick around to make sure they get it back, which means you can often take advantage of the other team being spread out or out of position. I'm about to get into some team building strategy, but one last thing about these caves. When you run up on the enemy cave entrance, you might see this fiery little running guy. He makes you move fast, and you might feel the urge to grab him, but please, please, don't take this buff, especially if you're going in for the grab. It takes a few minutes to respawn, and whoever is coming running out of that cave with the mask, whether it's you or some other guy, is really going to need that buff. Okay, so let's talk about team builds. Regardless of if you're queuing with a full or just a partial Battleground group, it's usually ideal to organize yourselves into 3 separate teams. The first team is your assault team. The main job of this team is to capture masks with a focus on stealing enemy masks, but also going after mask spawns in the center if they're opportune or if the enemy decides to turtle. The second team is your defense team. Defense has the job of making sure your masks don't get stolen and to at least delay the enemy team if they end up getting overwhelmed. Your last team are what I like to call your harassers. They're the glue of your team who float between offense and defense and fill in wherever they're the most needed. They latch onto the offense team and help escort back stolen masks, and they help defense when it gets overwhelmed. These harassers have the job of harassing the enemy team by delaying or preventing them from snatching the mask who spawn in the center. This is by far the hardest team to be a part of, because it requires the discipline not to get caught up in the fight in front of them, and the good judgment to know when to break off to help the other teams, or to go after a spawn. With all of these teams, unity and coordination is key. Defense and assault need to move and attack together, and harassers need to be constantly ready to move quickly to support the other teams. Remember, a stolen mask is worth twice the value of a spawn mask because it helps you while hurting the enemy team. Moving together, calling targets, and coordinating control moves is a big part of what separates the good teams from the bad ones. Now let's talk about group makeup. Regardless of if you're running with 10 or just 2 people, the first thing you really need to do if you want to win this battleground is find yourself a healer. Even if you're going in solo, if you really like to win, you might consider being that healer. Of course, healing isn't for everyone, but the job of healer is just such an important part of this map that if you don't like healing, it really helps to make chumming with someone who does. In a 10-man group, you ideally want to have at least 2 healers and 1 tank. This is what gives you the healing power and the survivability to run a mask. 2 healers is important because it makes it so much more difficult to CC both of them while either killing one of those healers or killing the mask carrier. In a 5-man group or less, you should try to bring at least 1 healer and 1 tank. And if you're queuing solo, well, then try working with a healer or a tank and see if you can make the offense happen. Sometimes just a few quick messages during the pre-match prep can go a long way. That being said, a common mistake in PvP is to try and kill the mask carrier while totally ignoring the healer. Unless you have really amazing DPS, it can be really tough to do this. It's usually important to either control the healers or to remove them from the fight before trying to take out their supported carrier. And what this often means is that you need to juggle your control moves between slowing that mask carrier and peeling off its heals. Once again, your coordination is going to be the key. In a 10-man team, a suggested setup would be to have 4 players on assault, including 1 tank and 1 healer, 2 players on defense, and 4 players, including the other healer, harassing. For a 5-man team, you might use 3 players as the assault team, with 1 harassing and the remaining player on defense. Both of these team builds accept the strategy that it's okay to lose a center spawning mask as long as it means capturing one that's stolen. But, like with every strategy, this is just a starting point. You're going to need to adjust and adapt accordingly. If you're queuing as a really small team like a pair, make the assault happen if you can, since it's the job that requires the most coordination. If you don't have any heals, try playing as harassers or support. Most importantly, stick together. Like with most team-based PvP, communication here is critical. Unfortunately, when you're dealing with pugs, it can seem a little bit one-sided. Still, there are a few tricks that can help you out. For starters, try to avoid using personal references. Instead of saying left side or right side, try using landmarks like the bone side or pool side. When calling a target in voice chat, try using both the target's class and name. An add-on like Bijiplates can help you with this if you're finding the game nameplates are hard to read. Finally, try getting used to calling out your CCs and who you're casting them on. It makes it much easier for other players to time their own CCs and to avoid the diminishing returns. While fighting in the Battleground, you'll earn Consumables as PvP rewards. You get them in the PvP reward bags that you get after winning a match or even losing one. Don't forget to open them up and put them on your secondary bar and use them. They can give you that little heal at just the right time that you need to barely stay alive, or boost you with other great buffs like movement speed or enhanced shields. Finally, remember to be tricky. When stealing a mask, you don't always need to kill the defenders. Luring their attention away from the pillar or hitting them with a CC chain is a great way to give your teammate enough time to snatch the mask. In addition to running the mask along the top of the pit, consider running it along the bottom. A combination of line of sight and speed buffs can sometimes make for a sneaky capture. Finally, by tapping a movement ability, like leap forward or backward, you can avoid damage when leaping off the top of the bridge and into the pit. You can use this to get to the masks below quickly, or just to quickly disengage. Just don't do it while carrying the mask. Well, that's it for my Walatiki Temple PvP guide. I hope you've enjoyed it and that you find it useful. This is Danny from coffeeteaandpvp.com, and thank you for watching.